This is metric system review. The metric system is very straightforward. It consists of two parts. The first part is the units. The units tell you what kind of stuff you're talking about. Are you talking about distance, which would be meters? Are you talking about time, which would be seconds? What are you talking about? Okay. In addition to that, there's also the prefixes. The prefixes tell you how many units you have. And they represent powers of 10. So if you had 10 to the third, 1,000 basically, of those units, you would have a kilo. If you had a very small number, like 10 to the minus 9th, you would have a nano amount of those units. Both the prefixes and the units have symbols or abbreviations. Okay, so the abbreviation for kilo would be a little k. For nano, it's a small n. The abbreviation for meter is a small m, and for seconds is a small s. If you have just the unit by itself, like an m, there's no prefix, there's only one letter. If there's only one letter, by definition, it has to be a unit. Okay? If you have two letters, so you have an M, and then in front of it you have another letter, that first letter is the prefix. It's telling you how many. So in this case you would have 10 to the third meters. The prefixes can go with any unit that you want. So you could also have 10 to the third seconds. Or you could have a smaller number of seconds. You could have a nanosecond. Okay, a nanosecond is very small. That would be 10 to the minus 9th seconds. But if I just had an S by itself, I just have basically 1 second. If you write the prefixes out like this, where I just have the symbols and I have them in a line, then we can start to see some patterns. Okay, giga, it stands for 10 to the 9th. Now there's another prefix that stands for 10 to the 8th, and another one that stands for 10 to the 7th. And they're represented here by these little lines. And they have words associated with them, and if you want to learn them, that's fine. But we don't use them very much at all. Mega we do use, and that represents 10 to the 6th. And again, I've drawn two little lines here to represent 10 to the 5th and 10 to the 4th. Kilo represents 10 to the 3rd. And then I have two little lines for 10 to the 2nd and 10 to the 1st. No prefix represents 10 to the 0. 10 to the 0 is the same as 1. And then I've got a little line here for 10 to the minus 1st. I'm going to go ahead and write that in. And another little line for 10 to the minus 2nd. And then we have milli. Milli represents 10 to the minus 3. Some lines for minus 4, minus 5. We have micro, which is 10 to the minus 6. And we have nano, which is 10 to the minus 9. If you look at these, it's just counting by threes. 10 to the 9th, 10 to the 6th, 10 to the 3rd, 10 to the 0, 10 to the negative 3, 10 to the negative 6, and 10 to the negative 9. So it becomes somewhat easy to remember. There's only one little problem with that technique, is that this 10 to the minus 2 ends up being important. And there's a unit that sneaks itself in that you have to memorize. Okay? And that is, of course, 10 to the minus 2 is equal to a centi, which we abbreviate it as a C. Which reminds me, let's go back and write these words out. Okay? So the big G stands for giga. The big M stands for mega. The little k stands for kilo. The little m stands for milli. This is supposed to be another m, and it stands for micro. But they ran out of m's. They're already using a capital. They're already using a small. So they're using the Greek letter for m. It kind of looks like a U with a tail in front of it. But it's actually the Greek letter for m, and it stands for micro. And then we have an N, and the N stands for nano. Now again, there's other prefixes, but these are the ones that we most commonly use. These are the ones that I require you to memorize. At its simplest format, we would write something like 4.58 gigameters. Okay, this giga, this big G, stands for 10 to the 9th. So if you just wanted to change that to meters, you would say, well, that's 4.58 times 10 to the 9th meters. The times 10 to the 9th is what the big G stands for. Or if you had 4.32 millimeters, and that, the first M has to be the prefix because there's 2 letters here, this has to be the unit, and of course that's meters and this is milli. So 4.32 would just still be 4.32, and it's times the M, little m, stands for 10 to the minus 3, so times 10 to the minus 3 meters. Again, this M stands for times 10 to the minus 3. So if you're just taking the prefix and changing it to a number, that's all you really have to do. Generally, though, what we have to do is transfer from one prefix, in this case it would be the mega, to another prefix, in this case the kilo. And the easiest way to do that is to use this line with the dashes in them and just move decimal places over. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the 4.58. I say, oh, my decimal place is right here. So it's right at the mega. And I want to go from mega to the K. So I'm going to move it over 1, 2, 3 places. So down here, that would mean I'd go 1, 2, 3 places. And then I have to fill in a 0 here for a placeholder, and this is my new decimal point location. I know I'm moving it this direction because that's the direction I'm going on the number line. Let's say I have 892 nanometers and I want to go to millimeters. Nano is right here, milli is right here. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places over on the number line, and I'm going in that direction to the left. So if I rewrite 892, put in my original decimal point, and I know now I'm going to move it 6 to the left. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so this right here represents my new decimal point, and I have to fill in those zeros for the placeholder. So I would have 0.000892 millimeters. There are other ways to convert. You can just simply know from your powers of 10, if you're going from a minus 9 to a minus 3, that you're going to be moving it over 6 places. And that's a great way to do it too. You can use this moving the decimal place over. You can use dimensional analysis. There's lots of ways to do it. I'm just showing you one. Some of the more common ones that we have to do is going between centimeters to meters, or millimeters to centimeters, or meters to centimeters, and likewise. So let's take a real quick look at it. This one is fairly straightforward. The centa is that unusual guy that sits out here in the middle here. He's kind of like right here. Okay, and centa stands for -2. So I know that in reality I could just rewrite this as 39.4 times 10 to the -2 meters. Of course, no teacher's going to like seeing it that long. So I also know that I'm going from here to my no prefix, because this has a no prefix in front of it. So I'm moving over 1, 2 to the left. So I'm going 1, 2. So that becomes 0.394 meters, which of course is the same as this number. Going from, say, 456 millimeters to centimeters, I'm going from the milli to the centi, so I'm only moving at one place. I'm moving at one place to the left, so that would be 45.6 centimeters. And that's all there is to the metric system. It really is very straightforward. Thank you for your time.